Now we're south of Phoenix, Arizona, about 2 or 3 miles from the city. And we're at the foothills of the South Mountains. There's some strange formations around here that we're going to be showing you. But I'm here with my new friend, Jeff+woolwin, who's been living here for most of his life and has been recording many of the things that we'll be seeing rock carvings of. Jeff, you've brought us to the foot of the South Mountains here, and there's some strange pyramid-like formations. I'm wondering what your take is on these pyramid shapes.
Well, as we go through the tour today, we will be seeing a lot of pyramid hill formations here. And when we study the pyramids, not only do we find pyramids around the world, whether they're man-made or whether they're natural-made, it seems like these pyramids are reference points to energy spots that actually attract these UFOs.
Now you see these UFOs. I like your take on how you explain UFOs. You see them as not extraterrestrial, but actually interdimensional.
That's right, that's right. Going into this, studying this phenomenon, I was having an open mind. I was thinking spaceships, technology, other planets that they come from. But as I started watching these things over the years and studying them and actually seeing them, I'm more inclined to believe that they actually reside here. It's more interdimensional. They're, instead of extraterrestrial, it's interterrestrial, if you will.
Okay.
And the Native Americans explain that these hills, these mountains, are sacred because their spirits reside.
So you're going to take us on a tour where we're going to see some of the wall paintings and rock paintings that have been left by Indians that have had experiences with some of these things that have been here for a long time.
That's right. We'll be overlooking some petroglyphs that has been carved anywhere from 900 years old to possibly close to 1,000 years old, and it depicts what they were seeing in the sky. They didn't have video cameras back then. They had stone boulders to record.
They recorded their sightings on stone.
That's
okay,
right.
Fantastic. What we are about to see is a great volume of dynamited rock. Jeff believes that it was the CCC under FDR that was trying to cover up a great mystery.
The CCC was established during the 1930s, during Franklin Roosevelt. They decided to boost the economy and to clean up the park. They did a lot of gold mining. Matter of fact, they pulled at least $60,000 worth of gold off this mountain, along with copper and some crystals and stuff. And they also did some devastation to some of the rock art here. And I believe that, as you can tell, all this blown up rock here, and then when you look straight up, you can see a petroglyph. The deers, all right, the animals, the carvings here are very significant. When we see a deer carving or a coyote carving, it's always looking in the sacred spot to where to find these UFOs at, or spirits, according to the Native Americans. So when we look at that deer, he's looking up the hill there, and when you look a little bit further, you can see on how the CCC destroyed that part of the story.
Well, now, I want to go up there and take a closer look at these petroglyphs, but my question to you is, why would the CCC want to destroy the story? What would their motivation be?
Well, I think there's a few explanations on this. One, when Phoenix was pretty much established, they were looking for gold. Now, a lot of people say, well, you know, you won't find a lot of gold nuggets here. True, but what they were failing to look at is gold was brought here by the Mayans. And
for what? Why would the Mayans bring gold here?
Well, to use it for their sacrificing rituals. They would melt the gold down to make gold idols in replicas of what their spirits that they've seen in the sky as a type of idol worship.
One thing that strikes me when we talk about spirits in the sky, I think I'm a lot like most people. This is a mythology. These people were, you know, just high on peyote or something, and they came up with all these strange ideas about the spirit in the sky. But these things that you're talking about actually physically manifest. They don't cast shadows, as you say, but you actually have pictures of some of these spirits in the sky. I've seen some of them. So they weren't just making up stories because they were high on peyote. They were actually seeing these manifestations of things. So is the cover-up that you're talking about the attempt by the CCC to cover over the story so that people wouldn't dig up these idols that they made after these spirits?
I believe so. That's right. That's right. Some of these rock art panels depict what is buried within the mountains here. So in destroying the story, destroying the rock art of it showing what's
it would
buried
discourage
here.
people from trying to dig them up.
That's right.
So you still think they're buried here?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Let's go to some of those places. I'm not into digging them up. I don't want to get King Tut mad at me.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is very interesting.
If you notice right down in here, right, you can see how the CCC, okay, you can see the dynamite sticks there. They implanted dynamite sticks to blow up the rocks, and here we can see some more dynamite sticks there, okay. Now, you'll notice that it's right on some petroglyphs. We have a deer here, okay. Now, in my studies, I'm coming to find out on studying the petroglyphs here, the animals, for instance, the deers or the coyotes, are always looking in sacred places to find these spirit beings at, to where some of the doors are, and also some of these sacred objects that are buried here within the mountains. They're forever looking at sacred places. So this deer here, now he's kind of looking up at a diamond spiral, okay? Now these spirals represent doorways for these beings. Now, we find spirals here on South Mountain. 20% of them are water, natural watering holes, but the majority of them here on South Mountains are doorways for these supernatural beings. Here, we have what looks like, what the Indians like to say, a lizard man, okay? And the story on these lizard men is when the Hohokam first arrived here, they didn't know how to live here in the desert. So these creatures came up out of the sand world. They looked just like us. They lost their tails, and they were able to teach the Native Americans how to live. And when they were done teaching them, they went back down into the sand world and promised to return someday. Now, some of the Native Americans here, when you ask them, because you will see that little dot in their belly. You see the dot in their stomach there? Now, some of the Native Americans will say, well, that's our spirit, and he's halfway in the rock and halfway out of the rock. He's coming out of the rock. But in my studies on watching these UFOs, I believe that dot there is an orb. This is what we're seeing in the sky today. And actually what this orb is doing is he's transforming into a man. He's representing a man. He's actually morphing into a human. So that dot in the belly there is actually a UFO orb, and he's morphing into a man.
While the Hohokam Indians recorded on rock faces their supernatural encounters, self-serving men tried to hide the story, annihilating their records by blasting them under a mountain of rock. But as we shall see, the Hohokam story would not lay dormant under the debris of men's devices. The story has been recovered, and the truth, for our benefit, has been restored by Jeff+woolwin's incredible investigation and patient observations. But even more importantly, and more impressively, we shall see that these strange sightings long ago recorded on rock are still being seen to this day here on South Mountain. These are the pictures that they drew. They drew on rocks. They didn't have cameras. They drew what they saw on rocks as a record of
That's
what
right.
they were experiencing in this Phoenix thing. Is Phoenix a valley? Would you call it a valley?
Yeah, it's the Valley of the Sun.
Valley of the Sun.
Phoenix, some people think it's, Phoenicians, the land of the giants, because we find a lot of petroglyphs here that depict giants, and a lot of evidence that the giants were here in Phoenix, Arizona through the rock art. And it wasn't just graffiti that they were doing, but they were actually telling a story of something important.
What's going on with this one?
Here we find what looks like a lizard guy because we have a tail here and we have his legs, and you can see that he's in the appeasement pose, much like what us sky watchers do. We look up and we're like, hey, you know, what are you? Come and see us. And here is a depiction of what looks like a worm or a creature, okay? And this is the type of stuff that we're looking for here in the Valley of the Sun. In my opinion, it's not a craft, but another life form. It's another creature. And this is actually depicting of what this Native American saw in the sky. And if you look up right over here, you can see another one there, all right? Now, I videotaped this. I've seen that creature there Easter Sunday of 2009.
You have a picture of that, a video of it?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
This is an amazing rock here. Why don't you explain this one to us?
Here we have on this panel many spirals, and here's one representing it as it's going down, which means that the doorway for the spirits is in the ground here. We have another spiral, seems to be representing it's going up. So not only do we have a doorway on the ground, but we also have a doorway in the sky. We have a coyote, or a deer, if you will, and he's looking up at what we might think is a spiritual being, okay? We have this worm here. What we're looking at is actually photographs of what these creatures look like. I've seen these worms in the sky here. Over here, we have a bow tie, and some of the petroglyphs here, these bow ties actually grow legs and arms and a head. And this is representing a spirit being, a UFO, if you will. On top here, you'll see that this is oriented on top, in the sky. This is one of these serpent creatures that I filmed many times here in Phoenix, Arizona, and it's up high, or it's as to say that it's been seen in the sky here. He's a very powerful entity. This is one of my favorite panels here. This panel right here really depicts on what the Indians were trying to say here of South Mountain. When you look at the rock art here, you're not just supposed to look at the art here, but actually what the artist is trying to tell us. And he's trying to tell us that the art is depicting the back of the landscape here. It's depicting the whole landscape. Here we have this formation here, okay? Now this represents the two pyramids that are behind us. This pyramid represents this pyramid here, and there's another pyramid that we'll see on the other side there. Now, if you look, the pyramids is in the shape of a serpent. Okay, this is a serpent making these two pyramids. So the Indians are trying to tell us that there's a serpent, a big serpent that dwells within these two pyramids here. On top, between the two valleys of the pyramids, it comes up and is this creature here. This is a UFO spirit creature. And to the left of him is the sun. So when the sun is in the right position, it opens up the two doorways of the pyramids for these spirit beings.
You know, Jeff, words form pictures in people's minds. And when it comes to the word spirit, people have no idea what to do with a mind picture for the word spirit. And so I think for most people, I think it's fair to say that most people think of something in the air just flying through the air, but which has no form. But as we look at these things, and as I look at some of the film you've shot, what these Indians called spirits actually had form. They could see them with their eyes.
That's right.
They were really strange looking things.
That's right.
And I'm glad you've done this work over the last 5 years, learning to understand what this rock art was all about, in relationship to what you've seen here in this Phoenix Valley. It is remarkable. There is a spiritual world that actually has form.
That's correct.
And these Indians and the people that lived here were actually experiencing these forms as they looked in the sky, and that's why they wrote them down here on these rocks. While we were filming this segment, we inadvertently captured on film a spirit anomaly. Watch carefully as it appears out of nowhere and rapidly accelerates upward.
You know, studying these UFOs and watching them for many years, I've come to find out that these things like energy spots, power plants seem to be the intergalactic gas station, if you will. I noticed that these UFOs would actually hover over some electrical power plants, and sometimes they would gather up so much energy that they would start to steam. And studying this type of phenomenon, I'd come to find out that these mountains, South Mountain is one of them, was created by a fault line. And these fault lines generate a type of energy. And this would explain on the reasons why these UFOs like mountains so much, especially the ones with the fault lines, is because they're absorbing the energy that the fault lines are producing. And along with these fault lines, and some people like to call them ley lines, we find pyramids. And these pyramids, whether they're natural phenomenon pyramids or if they're man-made pyramids, we find them on certain spots around the world that harnesses or attracts energy. And this is the reason why the UFOs like these pyramids so much, is because they're sitting on top of energy markers, ley lines, or fault lines.
It's obvious from the wall art that the holocom had no love relationship with the numerous spirits in the sky. But why?
This is what I believe to be an altar. And on the back side of this altar, we find Mayan or Aztec art. Now, clearly, this is art that we find on the pyramids of Mexico. And we have these, what look like orbs, okay, and they're connected together. Now, I've seen a lot of these orbs together like this, and they actually are connected, okay? As to say, they're like, they're connected together. And I believe when they do this, they're either interacting with each other or they're absorbing each other's energy by connecting themselves together. When we come around to the front side of this altar, we can clearly see on how this has been carved out. This whole panel here, along with this here, has been carved out. And we find stains, okay, that seems to be dripping off of this altar. Before they did their sacrifice, if you notice, it's right at a dried up riverbed. And what they used to do is they used to purify themselves first by washing themselves in the water before they did the sacrifice on the altar. And according to the legends here, when the sacrificing had stopped, that's when the spirits got uneasy and they got upset. And that's when the land started to dry up. The Hohokam didn't worship the sun, but they felt the sun was a tyrant god. And they felt that if they had stopped the sacrifice, that the sun god would get mad and would send his Valley of the Sun, his sun devils, to come down and to do whatever they wanted to do with the people. Here we find a stick figure guy with 4 arms, and he has this magical staff weapon, if you will. And he's pointing, he's shooting at this serpent in the sky. The sacrificing did stop, and that's when the land, according to the story, became dry and desolate, and that's when the Hohokam ended up disappearing.
You know, as I look back behind us over here, it looks like all these rocks were just pushed over something. And
That's right.
It's hiding something.
Mm-hmm.
What is it hiding? What do you think is buried there?
Something very significant is within this pyramid hill here. Whether it's gold tombs or whether it's a buried Mayan king, but something very significant, very special is buried within the walls here.
The people that would try to hide something like this would not want people to be looking for gold idols unto the alleged gods that the Indians saw. So perhaps it's a tomb where there's golden idols hidden.
That's correct. That's correct. And in studying this phenomenon here and in studying the myths of South Mountain, we should find many tombs with many gold idols representing the spirits that was seen in the sky.
Well, listen, we've had a great trip. I'm really thankful that you've allowed us to come out here and
thank you so much.
Find out all about your studies, 5 years of research into this South Mountain. And I think it confirms to, and will confirm to many people, that there really is a spiritual world, and it's not just invisible stuff. It's stuff that manifests in forms and dimensions, and I think it's pretty conclusive. So thanks for having us.
Thanks for coming out.